Good morning, Patriots. I'm Jay Delancey, alias Vote Checker, and today is October 4th, 2021. We need to run a correction on last Friday's podcast because the date on it was incorrectly reported as September 31st. Unless this is a leap millennium that I didn't know about, there is no September 31st. There's an October 31st, but not September. So it was actually October 1st. So we apologize for the confusion. All right, all fun and games aside, things have gotten pretty annoying to watch as election officials spread lies to the public or half-truths that are easily refuted. And we were already looking at something that happened this weekend as the subject of today's podcast. And then today, the State Board of Elections just cinched it when they put out a post. And I want to share my screen my desktop, so that people who actually watch this video later after we get it posted on our website will see what we're talking about. And for those of you who are on Facebook, or listening to the audio podcast, once we get our act together, you'll get the full picture of what we're doing here. Because unfortunately, this is multimedia, and it has to be a multimedia process, or it just doesn't make sense. So where do we start? Oh, I'm going back and forth on this. Do I start with the letter, or do I start with the State Board of Elections propaganda? I'm going to start with the letter, and then we might refer back to it in a minute. In fact, I'm sure I will. Okay, now what happened was in March of 2020, Voter Integrity Project of North Carolina did something that we like to do. Rather than just grab data out of the sky and go, see, this proves the problem, doesn't prove anything. It's just data, it's just numbers on a spreadsheet. We've learned through, watching the tea leaves in the courts and watching our own court case when we sued the Wake County Board of Elections. And I'm not allowed to characterize it as a win. I'll just put it this way. Our attorneys were happy, and the person we sued, the director of elections, an individual named Gary Sims, he was not happy. He wouldn't shake my hand after the lawsuit. So after we settled, but we're not allowed to call a settlement. We just have an agreement. They agreed to do certain things, and we agreed not to call it a settlement, not to call it a consent decree. It was kind of a settlement, non-settlement. I can't say we won it. I can't say we lost it. I just will say that our lawyers were happy, and theirs, well, they weren't. The point was, though, it was over the, and I have it linked on our website, and I'll have it linked in this briefing, but it's the at issue was 104% of Wake County voter rolls. I'll put it this way: there were 104% of citizen voting age population in Wake County. 104% of them were registered to vote. So that's called a problem. And going through the discovery process in that lawsuit, we learned a thing or two. And you learn a lot when you go into court, pay attorneys to school you. And it was a tough experience. And in fact, I'll leave it at that. The point was that just because the voter rolls are full, Judicial Watch, I'm going to go down this path. It'll be a little different than what we did on never mind. Okay, Judicial Watch, you might recall, they have sued North Carolina on this issue. They sue various counties, and you can do a DuckDuckGo search. I can't speak of that other company. I can't speak of them, but in the DuckDuckGo, you search it, you put Judicial Watch sues North Carolina, or NC, and the very first thing, just lots of them, it says Judicial Watch sues. A lot of these are their links because they have funding, and they do a lot of, they have PR people who put this stuff up on multiple platforms. God love them for it. I appreciate them. But they sued, they said lawsuit to clean up its voter rolls, sues Justice Department. No, sorry, that's something else. Judicial Watch sues to force North Carolina to clean its dirty voter rolls. North Carolina has 1 million inactive names left on its state voter rolls. Judicial Watch has worked to investigate this backlog and is pushing forward with legal action to ensure clean elections in the state of North Carolina. Yay, we support that. They've sued several counties, and like ours in Wake, it's a problem. There's some bad news here, though. It's like, yeah, I'm rooting for them. Yeah, they're going to win. The chances of them winning, well, we could help them and maybe they will win, but the chance of them winning and the way these lawsuits have been fought in the past, I would say are slim and none. Now, today I'm going to show you a little bit about why or how we can win it, how they can win it, and how anybody can win it. Okay, this reference, if you're looking at my desktop, it shows where we sued them. It was in July 28, 2016. It was a long time ago. We had a lawsuit like that preceded all the Judicial Watch lawsuits. They saw it, and they jumped in and did some. We've moved up. We're not filing these kinds of lawsuits anymore, nor is PILF, the organization that helped us, a group called Public Interest Legal Foundation. They have some strong North Carolina roots, and we really love PILF. PILF, if I could say it, PILF. Cleta Mitchell is on their board of directors, and she's from Moore County. She's a friend. And J. Christian Adams is the attorney of that organization. He's helped us a lot. They're on the pointy end of the spear on this, and we're with them on it as much as we can be when they're in North Carolina. Judicial Watch jumped in later, and they have been involved in this too, and we wish them luck. There's problems though, because Judicial Watch, their suits, what they're suing over is not the cause of the problem. It is the symptom of the problem. And they're saying, oh, you're not removing the voters in accordance with the National Voter Registration Act 1993, or motor voter, as they call it. All right, I'm being interrupted now, and I don't think it paused the other recording. I think the Facebook is paused while I'm being interrupted by a phone call. And we now resume. I'm not sure what that looked like at about the 9-minute into the podcast with Facebook. I just wonder what you heard of what I just said, because I took a break with my recording of the audio podcast because there was an interruption with a phone call that I wanted to see what would happen. That's where Facebook live streaming. Sorry, that's way too much information. Okay, the point is that these lawsuits, Judicial Watch is arguing this with multiple counties, Mecklenburg, Guilford, Wake. No, not Wake. I don't think they sued Wake this time because we already did. And that issue is MVRA, or motor voter as it's called. And right, I'm pausing here on Facebook, and I don't know if you can hear it, because here a moment later, we get another phone call that also blows up our podcast. And we have a problem here. We're going to solve it, but we can't solve it yet. We will be solving it soon. I apologize for that. The real issue is that the National Voter Registration Act is rigged to create the problem that we sued over, that Judicial Watch is suing over. It is a design flaw, and it's helped by the state and what they did to make matters even worse. The state being the State Board of Elections, in collusion with the Democrats that were controlling the legislature at the time. And they passed some really bad laws. And when Republicans took over in 2012, for the first time in forever, really since Reconstruction, when they took over both houses and the governor's mansion and got a veto-proof majority to boot, so it really didn't matter. When they got that kind of surge, they were still unable to fix this because they had to go into court because the Democrats didn't like it, so they took them to court. and they wore them down. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today, probably way too much, but not to make you angry. If I go into that too detailed, it will make you angry. But I will, to some degree. I'm going to touch on it. The court case came down. It was hideously stupid, insulting to Black people to say that Black people have to have 17 days of early voting or else they can't vote. But by cutting that, we wanted to cut it to zero. There's no reason for it at all. But our little sissy pants Republican veto-proof majority legislator, they guffawed and huffed and puffed and said, no, we can't get away with early voting. We can't do away with it. Too many of my constituents like it. Okay, yeah, great. Too many children like candy, so we got to give them candy in schools. What we need is adults who will do what's right. Instead, they and they cut it to 10 days. So they gave away the argument. The reason you needed to cut it was because it's ungovernable, it's unmanageable, it creates chaos in the system. And as just one element of that is same-day registration, something else we wanted to get rid of in 2012. And we thought we had the legislature agreeing to it, but then Tillis happens, and so forget it. None of that happened. Tillis was Speaker of the House. Nope, couldn't have it. Instead, he got it the way he wanted it, and hey, it was all thrown out in court. So there you go, Tillis. Good job. Oh, he's now our senator, so I better speak well of him. Okay, he's a Republican. So anybody who thinks that we're attacking Democrats and that we're a partisan hack, no, we go both ways. We call out evil or stupidity everywhere we see it. I'll let you decide whether it's stupid or evil, but that's not for me to decide. That's for a higher court. Don't it. I left my Bible downstairs. There was a proverb today about seeking wisdom. Today's the 4th of October. I want to say Proverbs 4, but it's seeking wisdom. That's the key. The key to getting wisdom is to never stop getting it. And then it says, above all that, get understanding. I'll have it on our website because I love that. It's like, okay, son, the secret to wisdom is this. Get wisdom. Dad, that doesn't really help, But the key is pursue it always. And so what does that mean? You look for wisdom wherever you find it. And if you listen to somebody, and maybe me, you listen to me and go, okay, that guy's full of crap. He's an idiot. I'm not going to listen to him. Or you go, hey, maybe that guy's got some wisdom. Maybe I need to listen to what he's saying instead of listen to what the little voices in my head say about it. So instead of the ad hominem attack against somebody where they attack the man, because look at him, he's ugly. He's got ugly teeth. Look at him. He's bald-headed. He's a white guy. He's Black. Instead of doing that, listen to what they're saying and judge them on the reasoning and the rationale of what they say. That's how you get wisdom. Okay, enough of that. We realize that we're going to keep losing lawsuits against same-day registration. Why? Because the left has it rigged. And I want to go into a little bit of history about why. And a major hat tip to our good friend who no longer, she's retired from the election integrity business. Her name is Susan Myrick, not the politician, but the researcher, the patriot. No offense to Susan Myrick, Charlotte politician, congressman. She was a fine congressional representative in North Carolina. But the other Susan Myrick, who had the name longer, as she's told me, did some great research at NC Civitas before she retired a couple of years ago. And we wish her well in her retirement. But she did some great research, and I want to highlight some of it here, and we built on it. Now, what happened was, okay, same-day registration, North Carolina couldn't have it because you're racist. That's it. I'll go into some of that here. Let's see, how do I do this? Oh, gosh. Oh, there's 70 ways to cover it. I'm stumbling about which way to go with it. All right, we did research on this, and I'm going to jump around these slides. You can see them at our link. It's the headline is VIP study reveals failures, same-day registration law, or just put SDR failure, and it'll pop right up on our search engine at voterintegrityproject.com. we've had this website up for over 10 years, and it's got a lot of stuff on it. So the search engine is the only way to navigate it. Or refer to our story today, October 4th. I'll have it up later this afternoon. Refer to that story, and you'll see the links to what I'm talking about. So that's kind of a way to navigate through this multimedia podcast. All right, so we did a research study and did a 51-page slide set and sent it to the State Board of Elections. So, and to the powers that be in the legislature. They probably looked at it like a pig staring at a wristwatch. And then the experts were people like David Lewis, who knows about these failures, who knew about these failings. He's no longer in the State House, but Lewis knew about these failures and didn't do anything about it when they had the power to do it. Instead, they played politics with it, and we're stuck with it for now. But we'll get rid of it if there's justice in the world. We will get rid of it. We did mailings to prove what the problem was with it, and it's part of research that has gone on for a long time in this area. And I want to touch on that research real quick, because Susan Myrick gets a great deal of credit for this in her work at Civitas. First off, the law was codified right before Obama. So what happened there? The Democrats that controlled the legislature worked with the Democrat who controlled the State Board of Elections at the behest of the Democrat National Party and the Obama campaign. So 2007, they codified same-day registration in North Carolina. And what that meant was you could walk in to the polls with a minimal proof of identity or proof of residence, and register to vote, and your vote will count. Not a provisional, it's a vote, and it thwarts. I got to back up here a little bit. It thwarts the propaganda put out today by the State Board of Elections when they have something called Mythbuster Monday on Twitter at NCSBE Twitter feed. It says reality. To register, you must have resided in that municipality or county for at least 30 days before the election. Or wrong. Rumor. If I own a property in or pay property tax to a municipality or county, I can register to vote there without establishing it as my permanent residence. Okay, that's their Mythbuster Monday comment. See, what they forgot to tell you was, hey, if you walk in a week before the election, go to the polls, I'm not going to tell you how to commit fraud, but we know it happens. And what we've seen is that people register, and the process proves that these people never lived at that address. So they come in, register, and then they vote, It's inside that 30 days. The question is, why are they doing it? Are they doing it to commit fraud? Or are they doing it? The one example I could see where it would be worthwhile would be if somebody, if you moved somewhere in the state and you moved to a different county and you forgot to register. That plausibly, normally it's the way the rule's written, the 30 days before the election, they close the books and you're allowed to vote at your earlier jurisdiction. So when I lived in Goldsboro and I moved to Raleigh, I came to Raleigh to vote, and they say, oh, you can't vote, you have to go back to Goldsboro. And then I go back to Goldsboro and vote. I could do that if I move within that 30-day period just before the elections. So, and then when I do vote, I'm supposed to vote a shaded ballot that only votes in races that are relevant. It's provisional, but it's only the races that are relevant to my no longer living in Goldsboro. So I can't vote for any bond issues or county commissioners. I can vote for Senate, U.S. Senate, or governor, but there's just certain things you can't do. That's the way the law was designed. At 30 days, they close the books, and the Supreme Court's agreed to that. You can seal the books at 30 days to let the voter rolls settle. So the NCSBE puts out this helpful information. What they're trying to do is stop people from going and voting where they have a business or where they own property, but not where they live. That, like so much of fact checking, it's half true. But it's mostly true, I guess, what the fact checkers would say. Maybe not, though, because the big gaping loophole is not only can you walk in on the Saturday before the Tuesday election, that's 4 days before the election. You can walk in on that Saturday if you get in line. You can register and vote in that new address, new residence, and your vote will count. It will count. You can walk in there and say, I moved to inside of Wake County. Say I'm from Wake County, living registered in Wake County, and I moved. I'm a magic mover. I could say I moved. My new address is here. And you do that, and there's a verification process. It's very clunky, and your vote will count. And then later on, they'll find out, oh, wait, that move didn't really happen, but you're not prosecuted because the state board, the county board, the state laws just, and the DAs, they won't prosecute it. People move like that, and then they move back, they fall off the roll, they come back on. It's a very fluid, the voter rolls are very fluid, and people game that. We've caught some of them, and what we did was we decided to look at one small piece of it, which is same-day registration. So as I was saying, in 2007, Gary Bartlett, the director of elections at the time, he colluded with the legislature to get this bill passed. Now, according to Myrick, the SBE, the State Board of Elections, gave the NC General Assembly, they had a test election on it in limited areas. And because the General Assembly was skeptical, even for Democrats, they were going, wait a minute, that doesn't look right. That's just something, I don't know. Knowing politicians the way I do, I think they probably said, my voters might figure out this is corrupt, so you got to give me something I can point to say, hey, this isn't corrupt, see? Even though they knew it was corrupt. It's a horribly corrupt system that there's no way they can fix it once you put it in, except to undo it. Actually, there are ways to fix it, but it's just very difficult. You have to want to fix it first. And that's the problem right now, is they don't want to fix it. They like it just the way it is. There are ways to fix it and not wind up in court, because you're not taking away someone's lawful right to vote. At any rate, okay, 2008, the General Assembly wanted to research it, and they told election officials to research it. So Bartlett talked to 10 election directors in selected counties. One of them was Buncombe. I think some of the bigger counties were involved. I know Buncombe was. And they told the truth. They said it's unworkable. Why is it unworkable? Because the process by state law is when someone registers a vote, you have to mail them a letter. I'll go into that more in detail, but it takes time. I'm not going to go over that right now. I want to go to the history of SDR right now. What happened? They said it was unworkable. And so Bartlett didn't like that. He didn't like that answer. Instead, he went in focus groups with the usual suspects from the left, people like Democracy NC, the NAACP, a group called NC Fair Share, and NC Center for Voter Education. These are left-wing groups that come in and they're pushing things to destabilize the electoral process. That's just who they are. That's what they do. They want to make laws that are that facilitate fraud. And if you call them out on it, they say you can't prove it. Actually, you can, but not unless you want to. You have to want to prove it. Nobody wants to prove it except for us. So that makes us kind of the crazy uncle over in the corner. The lawmakers don't like us. The Board of Elections doesn't like us. In fact, the only people that like us are generally you, the people who listen to us and follow our podcast and maybe throw us some money at our website, voterintegrityproject.com. $5 a month on a recurring basis would be wonderful, because it really helps us plan and stabilize our own operation. Right now, we're all volunteers. We've been that way for 11 years, so I don't know if it's going to change or not, but yeah, you feel free to pitch in if you want to help. At any rate, people do care, but people in power don't like us in both parties. This is not slamming Republicans or Democrats. All right, now, so what happens? Obama got the same-day registration law, or the Democrats colluding with the Obama administration or Obama campaign got this process in. In that first year, in 2008, with Acorn all over North Carolina, by the way, history may never tell. We've done a lot of research in this area, and we've had a hard time getting the facts because the state board of elections conveniently lost some of the data evidence we need for that. It is what it is. But we do know that in 2008, there were, we believe, there were 480, roughly 500,000, 485,000 same-day registered voters that year, the first year that this law was in effect. Now, since then, it's dropped down to around 120, 130, maybe 150,000 per election. But that first time, it was 485,000. Did I mention Acorn was operating in about 7 or 8 of the biggest cities in North Carolina? Did I mention that? So suddenly we had nearly 500,000 same-day registered voters. And of that, when they went through the process, a very fraud-friendly process, but out at the end, there were that the State Board of Elections was still forced to deny the registration of 6,000 of those same-day registered voters. It doesn't mean that 6,000 of them voted fraudulently. It means a minimum of 6,000 voted fraudulently. It means that, or someone used their names. So it's kind of either, we don't know. There's no way to know this because Acorn, they were making up names. They were walking in, registering people. And all you need is one corrupt election official at the polls. And there's a lot of them there, a lot, especially in 2007. There were a lot more than there are now because we've been working hard to get people who love our country to go in and work at the polls. It's not enough just to go vote, study the issues. You've got to become an employee and work in the system. So we always say the first foremost thing you can do is get a job, go in there and work. And I need to warn you that if you're a Boy Scout or you care about our country and our stability, they will find ways to harass you and get rid of you, but do it anyway, because eventually we'll overwhelm them if we have enough people in there. So anyway, there were 6,000 people that the State Board of Elections, through all their convoluted rules, even they could not get rid of. So they couldn't hide. So they had to kick them off the voter rolls. Still 485,000 registered, and some of them are still in the rolls. I don't know what their current status is, but they registered, they voted, their votes counted, and Obama won by 14,000 votes that year. Okay, that was proof that North Carolina is a blue state, right, or a purple state. There's a lot of fraud that happened there. How much? We don't know. We weren't here at the time, so it's hard to tell. But in 2012, Susan Myrick at NC Civitas did a study, and it was in the primary, March primary, contentious primary, where the marriage amendment or the what they call it, North Carolina Amendment 2, depending on whose side you're on, the marriage amendment to codify marriage as, to put it in the Constitution, that marriage is between a man and a woman in the North Carolina Constitution. And that issue was on the ballot. So it was a very high turnout race for everybody. And there were a lot more same-day registers that popped in. And Civitas did a mailing, I don't remember what the total number was. You have to search their website to see it. But they found 10,000, roughly 10,000 that returned undeliverable. Now, what happens is the voter gives their name and their address, and they supposedly prove it with some kind of document proving their address. And then the very ethical and honest polling official will take your information, input it, and give you a ticket to vote, and you go vote, and your vote counts. But then later on, they'll solve the problem. They'll check your registration, they'll verify it. And that's where in that previous focus group in 2008, the election officials said this is unworkable because the verification doesn't work. It's convoluted, and I may or may not read it to you today, or we'll just access it on our website on it, because it's so convoluted, it's crazy. They send out multiple mailings. The first one is a verification mailing. Put that word in quotes, verification. That if the verification is not returned undeliverable, it is presumed that the registration is legal and it will be counted. The voter will count. And this is North Carolina law, presuming that if the post office is 100% accurate in all cases, that's what they're presuming. As a result, the error is in the direction of the voter, but the failure is in the process of the registration verification process. So as for same-day registration, it fails. So Myrick's research netted over 10,000 letters returned, and Jerry Bartlett swept it away by saying, oh, well, it was early voting. They waited too long. They mailed it. No, I said it was a primary. They waited too long to do the research. And a lot of them were college students who had left and their addresses were no longer valid. Yeah, I guess these college students were too stupid. They were forwarding address, right? So all this mail returned. I mean, it's just on its face, it's a stupid argument, but that's all he needed for the left-wing media. WRL, News Observer, they ran with that, and that was the end of the story. So all of Civitas's research, they spent tens of thousands of dollars on it. All that was wiped away with Bartlett's just, oh, well, that was, it was a primary, it was in the spring, school was out, the kids left. I said, okay, and that was it. They moved on, and nonetheless, the legislature tried to outlaw it in 2013. And we, after they dismissed it that way, we did some research and found that by their own admission, there are some that fail. I mentioned in 2008, 6,000 declined. And so we looked into their own data and made them interpret it for us and showed them, oh, okay, so in Buncombe County in 2014 election, there were 64 same-day registered voters whose addresses were never verified. They failed at verification and they wound up being denied. 64 of them, and the control of the entire county commission that year was decided by 18 votes. And Christina Merrill lost by 18 votes. They were all provisional. It's a whole nother story, but the overlying was over 64 SDRs or same-day registered that were fraudulent. And the funny thing about it, Christine, the person who clawed their way back in to win it, wound up later being indicted on corruption charges. But Christine didn't get her job back. They governed, the Democrats had a governing majority in Buncombe County. They almost lost it in 2014 until they were able to claw it back through two things. One was manipulating the college student votes, and the other was manipulating the same-day registration laws. Today, I'm going to focus just on SDR. We'll cover college students later. That's a whole other issue. But it actually does cross over into this. So anyway, okay, now in 2013, the legislature did the lawsuit. I mean, they outlawed it because they like Civitas research, so they outlawed SDR. And even though they outlawed it, the left sued, and we did that research in February of 2013. We did the research to show, no, it's 2014, February. It was right after it was 2013. Sorry, I'm like an old man going, yeah, I was right the first time. Yeah, I am an old man. Anyway, we did the research after that 2012 election because Merrill, we were so amazed at how close she lost that race. And we pointed out to them that it was their own research that proved it. And, we didn't have to spend tons of money like Civitas did. And we're able to prove that the election was impacted by illegal SDRs, same-day registered voters. So the legal defense team for states for that lawsuit, the North Carolina legal defense team, thanked us for the work, and they took it into court. They got Kim Strack during deposition to admit that kind of failure. She admitted to around 3%. It was actually under that as I reviewed the transcripts, but our slide said 3%. So I'll go with that, but it was a little under it. She admitted to that as the mail being returned undeliverable and problematic, but that's not enough to impact an election. Well, au contraire, 3% of 100,000 is 3,000 votes statewide, and we've had elections that have been decided by less than 3,000 votes. I'm thinking the last one that I recall was a school Department of Public Instruction race back in the early 2000s when Bill Fletcher, the Republican, he won it, but he then a machine failed. A touchscreen voting machine failed, and they had to redo that race in that county. And the Democrat managed to win after they did the re-election. So never mind. So the failure of that machine was 4,000 votes, and it took out Fletcher's win. And then it just got all ugly, and it came down to machine. But I digress. Today we're talking about SDR, and the 3% is a lot. The bottom line to all that was that the NAACP and the racist fourth district court, fourth Supreme Federal Court, fourth district, I guess it is, in Richmond, they went for the bait, and they said that the legislature was a bunch of racists for daring to get rid of SDR because blacks need it, because blacks can't vote like everybody else does, and they need it. It was so stupid. It was just a stupid argument. But when you got a majority, you can make the argument, and they did, and they made the argument. The racism in it was their soft bigotry of low expectations, that blacks are too stupid to fill in the blank. In this case, it was to vote at the same time everybody else does, to register at the same time everybody else does. Instead, they need SDR, and if you take it away, you're doing it because you hate blacks. It's like, no, it has nothing to do with blacks or whites or Hispanics or anybody. It has to do with election integrity. But that was not a winning argument because the defense team would not make the case that there was fraud. So they lost, and the law got swept away, and we are where we are now. So what did we do? We, Voter Integrity Project, did our own research. So we decided we're going to research this some more. And that takes me to the briefing that we gave to the legislature, the 51-page briefing I referred to. And I've just been going over the history of it on this one slide. Now, what we did, what it was we sent first-class non-forwardable mail, a letter to each same-day registration immediately. I think in Arizona they call it the MV33 file. We call it the overnights in North Carolina. It's the data that's dumped every night as far as who voted today during early voting. And a same-day registered voter, there's a column that says SDR, and it says yes or no. It just says yes, or else it's blank. And if it says yes, then it's a same-day registered voter. So the very next day, we knew who had voted SDR yesterday. So we knew that Joe Schmuckatelli went into the precinct, and he lives over in Onslow County. Schmuckatelli walked into the precinct, registered, and voted on the same day using SDR rules. And the next day, we knew it. So that day, we did a mail-in. That very day, we initiated mailing. Because remember, in 2008, or around 2012, Bartlett, the excuse he used to get Civitas was they waited too long to do it. The voters had already moved. So we decided we would beat the Board of Elections with the mailing. We would mail the letters right away, not wait till after the election. Because we've later learned that it's a county-driven mailing, and some counties, they drag their sweet feet in doing it. Some never do it, and that's a whole other problem that we'll get into that another day. The point is, we couldn't do it statewide. It's too darn many of them. So we decided to do it for a special election, which was the do-over election. There were two congressional elections that year, and the deal was the Mark Harris do-over election where he was out of the picture, and Dan Bishop was the Republican against Creedy, the do-over candidate for the Democrats who had lost to Harris the first time. So the loser went in to do it again, and Dan Bishop was the next man up, 9th Congressional District. That race, and also a race in the eastern part of the state involving the deceased Walter Jones, the congressman, and his seat was open, and they had a race there too. So we decided we would just target our mailing to those all SDRs in those districts. And we were able to pay for it all. It's a lot of mailings. You're talking basically $1 a letter to send these letters. And we had a survey inside of it where they'd go to a Survey Monkey deal and fill in. And we did a questionnaire. It was a very interesting questionnaire. If I don't ramble on too long, I'll go over that because it's really complicated. It's hard to go over it in one day. The point to it was that it was an epic failure from the point of election officials. And I'm gonna cut ahead and get off this webpage and go to the actual briefing. What we found, the verification process in the briefing, we go over the law, but I don't have time to go over it today. So what we had many research questions, but what we found was letters that were returned in an inordinate amount. It was the State Board of Elections reported a 99.1% success rate. as in they accepted more than 99% of the letters that they mailed out to these SDR voters were accepted. The problem we had was we had a 6.4% fail rate. So you do the math a different way. That means that we had 7 times more returned mail than the State Board of Elections did. We were using the same addresses they were using, but we were getting a lot more of that mail back. So why is that? That is something worth researching. We think we know the reason why, but I'm not going to say today. The fact is, the failure rate was a lot higher than what they admitted to. Now, we also mentioned that some of these people, they got the letters. A lot of them got the letters, and some of them actually opened it and they went through and they took us up because we thought if you get the letter, if you don't get it, that's interesting. And if you do get it, I've got some questions for you. So we asked some questions, and the questions were kind of intriguing. Really surprised us. We asked people why they voted SDR. This points to why would you even need SDR? We had about 30% of them, 25% say it was the first time they'd ever registered and voted. Okay, it's convenient because the law says that if your birthday is within that 30-day period right before the election, you can't vote in that election. That's what the law said until SDR came along. Now, if your birthday is the Friday before the election, you can register and vote. So, okay, they changed that. All right, I guess that's fair. Okay, so that's convenience. Now, they used it to update their address. 41%, 40% roughly, said they used it to update their voting address. That's fair too. The law had a way of doing it, but your vote wouldn't have counted locally. It would have counted back at your previous address. And if you're from out of state, that's the same thing. Others said I used it to update another part of my voting record. For example, I switched parties or I had to correct my name or something like that. And the more problematic was the 7% who said I used SDR because somebody convinced me to vote at the last minute. So I thought, that's interesting. So they didn't really have a lot of dog in the fight. They didn't have skin in the game, but somebody conned them into voting. So they went to the polls and did it. That's a problem. That's the aspect of SDR I don't like, because these are people who give it no thought except to go, well, okay, you talked me into it. I'll go vote. I don't care, but I'll vote. So it's not internally driven. It's externally driven. It's extrinsic. Theory X, theory Y. It's theory X. It's a business term, but it means that somebody outside prodded you into voting. They conned you, convinced you at the last minute to do it. All right. It wasn't an intrinsic decision. It wasn't because voting reflected your values. It was because somebody outside of your values got you to do it. So that's a problem, but it's okay. It is what it is. A large percentage used it for convenience. Now, let's see. How many times have you voted before using SDR rules? 92% had never done it. 7% had done it quite often. This is the slide that really got me. It said, what did you show the election official to prove your current address? Because the law says you have to prove your address. And what we found, it was only 2, but we've since replicated that in other studies. It was a very small response rate total. Only 59 people responded, mailed out over 600, I think it was 800 letters. And 2 of them that answered said nothing. I just told them my new address. That's a failure. That there is a failure. So then what you have is the mail verification as a way of solving it, which brings us back to the mail we got this weekend. Now, you won't be able to see this on Facebook, but boy, howdy. We'll have it on our website. It's a guy named Tariq Levon Bynum. During that study we did in 2018, in the primary in March of 2018, or special election actually, we happened to mail Tariq Levon Bynum a letter at his registration address. Now, people in Fayetteville who understand election law are going to laugh. The address was 1200 Murchison Road, and that's another problem right there. At any rate, we mailed that letter March 6th, 2020. It was postmarked March 6th. And last weekend, our chief wizard, actually, he just got it back. Maybe it was a week ago. I thought it was last weekend. September 23rd, the post office, like the guy who had been on vacation for what, 18 months at the post office, must have pulled the letter out and said, "Oh, gosh golly, we need to send that back." So they put those little yellow stickies on it, said "Return to sender, not deliverable as address, unable to forward." That was dated September 23rd, 2021. So what do you have? 18 months later, we get this thing back, undeliverable, returned almost 19 months, returned. But the law says that it's presumed that because it didn't come back, it was presumed to be a valid registration. I'm paraphrasing, and I should show you where that law is. It's because the tentative determination. If the notice in this subsection is returned undeliverable, that person's already voted by absentee ballot, then that voter's ballot may be challenged. So you have to go through the challenge process. But in cases where an election occurs before the process has had time to be completed, the county board makes a tentative determination that the applicant's qualified to vote. And it's only denied if a letter is returned as undeliverable and two notices to the applicant are sent. One is a verification and the other is a confirmation. And so it's a real problem. I thought I saw the word presumed somewhere. It may have just been in the code, but the problem with it is it's designed to fail. The letter doesn't come back. In our case, it did come back 18 months later. The guy's name was Tariq Lavan Bynum. So let's look at who Tariq Lavan Bynum is. We looked him up on the voter rolls. And first things first. Okay, this is, yeah, I'll leave it at that. This is, go there. In the interest of time, I will not go there. Okay, we looked up Tariq Lavan Bynum, still registered at 1200 Murchison Road, by the way. He is Black, he's a Republican, he was not a DMV registrar, not a current DMV customer. I'm not sure what that means. It either means he did not register at DMV, or it means that he has no record of being a human being in North Carolina with DMV. So that would be worth pursuing. We may have to get back to you on that. All right, so the Black Republican, if there's such a thing, registered at 1200 Murchison Road. Anybody in the audience know what 1200 Murchison Road is? Anybody? Is it a residence? No, it is not. It is a mailbox facility. It is a ginormous mailbox facility at a place where super voters register to vote. They're called students. I call them super voters because they have rights unlike the rest of us. We'll go more into that later. Super voters, flag that. We'll do that another day, maybe tomorrow, maybe not. All right, Tariq, he registered and voted SDR on March 3rd for that special election, one-stop early voting, and he registered Republican because why? Because if you didn't register Republican, you couldn't get a ballot. There was no point in voting if you didn't register Republican. That's why I voted Democrat in the past, even though I'm an unaffiliated voter. I identify as unaffiliated, I vote Republican. But one time it was an election where there were no Republicans in that particular primary. You just had an uber leftist Marxist commie rat running against a garden variety liberal Democrat. So I got in and voted for the garden variety liberal Democrat, who lost because it was Wake County and the commie rat Marxist pigs had taken over Wake County. So enough of my personal opinion. All right, so Tariq goes in there on March 3rd, 2020, and registers in 2020. Our mailing went out March 6th, 2020. So 3 days later, we got a postmark that actually went out the next day. And that letter came back undeliverable. Shazam. I wonder what happened to the letter that the Cumberland County Board of Elections got back from them. I wonder if they got a letter back from them. These are things that make you scratch your head. Okay. Nonetheless, that was a lawful registration. So Tariq, he voted again. 20, apologies. Someone by that name had voted in person in 2016. So 4 years later, he voted one-stop early voting. So it seems plausible that in 2016, Tariq registered and voted in person on election day, November 8th, 2016. And then 4 years later, voted one-stop early voting. Now, a year later, we get our mail back from him, or 18 months later, we get our mail back from him. In the interim, he got to vote again because he registered, and his registration was never confirmed to be to be denied. It wasn't denied. Why is that? We don't know, but we're going to find out why it was not denied. All we know is that Tariq, he voted one-stop early voting, and the mail we sent him was returned undeliverable. It took 18 months to get it back, but at some point it was delivered over to the mailbox facility, also known as Fayetteville State University mailroom, and it was sent back. So it's a giant fail. And if this were just the mailrooms on college campuses, that would be one problem, but it is not. They're all over the place. And our research proved that, because most of the mail we did in that study were not college dormitories, they were other addresses. But anyway, Tariq was at a college dormitory address. And Tariq got to vote again that November, even though his registration should have been denied because his mail was returned undeliverable and the address was not valid. The process didn't work. Now, I'm not calling Tariq a bad person. I don't think he should have voted from his college address. I think he should have voted from his home in Martin County. That's where his parents are, more than likely, and that's where he's from, and that's where his lawful residence is. And this gets into the other area called super voters, and we'll talk about that later as we wrap things up. So the system is broken because it's based on mail verification, and the mail verification as currently designed does not work. Now, there are ways to fix this. There's things to do. And the answer comes down to what we can do right now as citizens. There's things we can do in the legislature, but they're not going to do anything because they don't care. All they care about is getting reelected. They don't want to be sued. So they hate being sued because they see their name on lights on a lawsuit. NAACP v. Moore, and the little Timmy can't, it hurts his political future because he's been sued. So I get it. And, some people would rather care about their political future than about the long game of the survival of our country. I get it. That's a finite mindset that a lot of politicians have. CEOs have it too. It's not just the politicians. It's our culture. People care about the here and now rather than the long term. That's why we make stupid decisions when we're 18 that we wish we hadn't made. And by the time we're 21, if we're still alive, maybe we grow a brain and maybe we think differently. At any rate, our system is designed to fail this way. Now, the question would be to go over Canvas, get over to the school and see if Tariq is still there. He might be a grad student at Fayetteville State. From what we can tell, he's now 23 years old. Means he's there a long time. But hey, if he registered in 2016, let's do the math. That was 5 years ago. So he's 23 now. Okay. So that would make him roughly 18 5 years ago. So he registered in Martin County and voted. Then he went away to college. In 2020, he voted again. Nothing wrong with that. I would just argue he should have voted absentee unless he was an emancipated adult and had no family and claimed his own residence. Nobody claimed him on their taxes, and he was an emancipated adult living in Cumberland County. But in that case, why is he voting from his dormitory address instead of from where he lives? Because nobody lives at 1200 Murchison Road. It's like voting for a mailbox. Nobody lives there, yet he gets to vote there. I wish you could call me. No, I won't wish this. You can call me racist for this. You can call me racist for saying that there's a whole bunch of people like that at 1800 Fayetteville Street in Durham, also Fayetteville Road, whatever. And you can call me racist for saying there's a whole bunch of people at number 1 Duke University South and number 1 Duke University North, or is it East and West? This problem is not just about Black schools. This problem is about a whole lot of schools. At NC State, they named the dormitory. They say this student lives at 0 Bergall. That means he lives in Bergall dorm. Oh, by the way, go Wolfpack. They somehow defied their mojo. They won a big game a week ago. They beat Clemson, and they went down to Louisiana Tech where they're an 18-point favorite, and they won it on the last play of the game where they intercepted a pass in the end zone. Hey, the old Wolfpack would have found a way to lose that game. Dang, they almost did, but they survived it. Go Wolfpack. So what did they do at State's program? They register the voter at that dorm. Now, granted, kids move from dorm to dorm, and this thing still doesn't matter because the university mailroom does it. And I don't want to go down the student voting today. We'll hit that one hard. The point is, and this is the takeaway here, almost 1 hour into this: canvas, canvas, canvas. That's the point. This data suggests that Tariq Levon Bynum should not be voting from 1200 Murchison Road right now. He probably shouldn't have voted there in 2020, but maybe he should. It's fair. We don't know. The point is, where is he right now? Is he still there? He could be. He could be. And it's up to canvassers to find out why this mail return. The fact that return makes me think he's no longer a student at Fayetteville State University. Makes me think he dropped out of school and went on with his life. I don't know where he is. What is the point? I'm not picking on Tariq. The point is, there are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people just like him. And our mailing, where we're getting 6% back, and there's over 100,000 who registered to vote in North Carolina. We did one mailing, we got about 40% back. That was Bladen County, and everything's different in Bladen. But anyway, we got a lot of them back, say at 6%, and we had over 100,000 of them registered to do this in North Carolina for the last election. That's 6,000 voters. That's a lot of voters. And if there are that many who are voting, the mail system is catching eventually, how many did we not catch? How many were thrown away? How many did the delivery person deliver anyway to the wrong address? I mean, this assumes perfection in the postal system. Now, there are policy ways to fix it that I'm not going to go into today, because you, as the angry voter, you can yell at, you can pound on your pragmatic lawmakers who will do nothing as long as you don't primary them. Do whatever you do, just don't primary. You can go out and do whatever you want to do, and you can hammer them. Okay, that's great. They need to audit the elections. Let's be part of the audit to find out about this situation. They're not going to do it. Oh, maybe they will. Keep pounding, and maybe they will. If adults get in charge, they will. But what you can do is do primary research to throw it in their face and make them realize we have a problem. This system is broken. I know it's broken. You know it's broken. And now, because of my research, you know that I know it's broken. And to you, the audience, now, because if you've endured this 1 hour long, now you see why it is broken on the same day registration level. Now, you can go to our website, look at the research yourself. This is primary research. This is not news clippings. This is money we spent doing research. The scholars, you're welcome to access it. And we show our methodology, we show the history of this research and everything. Do your own research. But to you, the non-scholars, get out there, join the canvassing effort in your state. In North Carolina, Liberty First Grassroots, get up with them. They're on Telegram, they're on Twitter, find them, Liberty First Grassroots. Get a hold of them, find out what you can do to get involved in it. There's a Telegram group called North Carolina Audit Force, if you can find them. I'm not sure, they went a secrecy route. I'm not sure if you can find them. I know I can't talk to them right now for some reason, but they're maybe you can get a hold of them and communicate with them and get in there. And you need to join the canvassing team, get the training they're offering. Go do it. Go do it. Canvassing is the most important thing you can do right now. Yes, continue to pound your lawmakers on audits, but by canvassing, you will get the evidence that they'll look at and go, you know it's bad. And they know, the lawmakers know it's bad, but they think you don't know it. They think they can suppress that, and the media is helping them. As long as they suppress that, then they can keep it the way it is, and then progressives can steal our state. That's the name of the game. If you're watching this video later, then maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not as dark as I thought it was. If this video gets taken down, then maybe I'm right. So that's the only question. So, all right. I'm going to close on that happy note. So your action step, number one, is to canvass. If you take nothing away from this, go join a canvassing effort at Liberty First Grassroots or NC Audit Force. I think they're working together. Go with either one of them. We love them both. So go with them. Get them to work. It's amazing that so many people have jumped in to help. And if you beyond that, if you want to help us, throw us a couple of bucks. Go to our website, go to Integrity Project, throw us a couple of bucks. Yeah, a monthly payment of any sort is deeply appreciated. Or just a chunk of change if you want to throw it to us. We always like that too. All right, it was a long one. Thank you for your patience. If you hung in there that long, it's Jay Delancey, alias Checker, and I am